Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am your host here in bustling, cosmopolitan Belmore, Long Island, New York. Happy to be bringing you yet another episode of the world's longest running poker strategy podcast. That's right, I'm performing this weekend here on Long Island. I'm at the Brokerage, part of the Governor's family of comedy clubs, and I'm very happy to be back here. I love this place. It's one of the first places outside of New York City that I ever had a chance to perform. And back then, I was just a entry-level MC opening act, and now I'm actually headlining, so always a bit of a full circle moment coming back here to the Brokerage. I hope you guys can join me this weekend on Long Island. Now, guys, if you want tickets, it's govs.com. A couple of updates for you guys before we get into some strategy, which are the Wynn and the Venetian have now announced their schedules for the summer. We're still waiting on a few other properties such as MGM Grand and, of course, the Aria. But the big three players are up, and we can all start obsessing over what tournaments we might want to play this summer and at which properties. So that's exciting. It's come out a bit later than I remember from previous years. So a bit of a scramble now to try to figure out the schedule. I noticed right off the bat that the Venetian schedule actually has a lot more senior focused events than they have in the past. And so that's part of a growing trend. As much of the old school, if you will, like those of us who have been around for a while, have reached the point where we're allowed to play in 50 plus events. So there are more such events to cater to guys like me who are ready to dip their toes into that senior water, if you will. That sounds really gross. Anyway, let's move on and talk about GTO Wizard, which of course is my favorite tool that I like to use to improve my poker game. And they announced this week that they are simplifying their pricing structure. They had many tiers before. They've cut that down. Everything's a lot simpler than it was in the past. And that's good news, right? We all hate complicated pricing structures. Now it's real easy to see what you get and for how much money. You can save a little bit of money if you click the link in the description of this podcast. You can save 10% off your first purchase at GTO Wizard. If you start your journey by clicking that link or just by typing in gtowizard.com/p/TPE. All right, I want to go back and look at the hand we talked about last week from the $215 WSOP Online Sunday Major. So guys, I want to go over this hand again using the Wizard and figure out whether the Wizard approves or disapproves of my play in this hand. The action, if you remember, folded to me on the cutoff. The blinds were 700 and 1400 with a 1400 big blind ante, and I had the ace-4 of clubs in the cutoff. Obviously, we're going to start with an open. I made it 2800, and the action folded to the big blind who called. The Wizard always plays the ace-4 suited. No surprise there, but perhaps it will surprise you just a little bit to find out that we can sometimes limp. Now, the other players, they have different stack sizes. The big blind, for example, the most likely player to get involved, has 32,000 in his stack, so about 25 big blinds there. So it's okay to limp at this stack depth. 9% limp, 91% 2x. I don't have my limping range developed as well as I should, obviously. I don't think at any point did I consider limping in with this hand at this stack depth, and I think I need to work on that between now and the summer in Vegas. But at the same time, I probably have much bigger fish to fry in terms of plugging leaks in my game before I start competing for the big bucks. Anyway, we open, and now the flop comes King of Hearts, Jack of Spades, 7 of Clubs, King Jack 7 Rainbow, and I've got the Ace 4 of Clubs. So I've got an overcard and a backdoor flush draw. The big blind checks, and I went ahead and put out half the pot. So let's see what the wizard thinks about my 50% bet here on the flop. It's actually a mixed strategy, and the wizard does bet this amount 18% of the time. Bets a lot of different sizes. It's a very mixed strategy, but surprisingly, we want to check in this spot 45% of the time. I'm thinking on a rainbow flop with 2 Broadway cards, it's way better for my range. I thought it would be very close to 100% C-bet here. So once again, what in the heck do I know? We're actually supposed to check almost half the time. But yeah, it's fine that I bet. I'll give myself a little pat on the back for betting half the pot here. And villain calls. The turn comes the 10 of diamonds. So our board is now King Jack 7 10 Badoogie, and villain checks. I decided to check behind. So let's see what GTO Wizard thinks about my decision. After having C-bet on the flop, I gave up on this card on the turn. Well, the wizard hardly ever checks back, only 0.2%, so practically never. I'm not going to pat myself on the back for choosing the 0.2% frequency play. We actually want to be betting half the pot here most of the time. And I think this has to do with just the nuts advantage, right? We can have ace queen, we can have pocket kings, all these really strong hands. And villain really should not have very much, if any, of those nutted hands. And so whenever you've got an extreme nuts advantage over your opponent, it's often correct to go ahead and keep the pressure on, leveraging that advantage whether you have the nuts or not. So this is going to be a mistake by me here. I'm not proud of the fact that I checked behind or that I didn't notice that last week when we first talked about this hand. I need to keep the pressure on in these spots, especially when I can start to threaten my opponent's stack. I mean, that's really what tournament poker is about. I know that you don't have the nuts, and I can really leverage that and the fact that you don't want to bust out of this tournament. That's why I need to keep the pressure on in these situations. This is something I'm going to study very, very hard for the next 2 months and make sure I'm not making these kinds of passive mistakes in Vegas this summer. Anyway, I did check behind, and now the river's the 4 of spades. It's a total blank, and villain suddenly leads for a third of the pot, leaving himself about another pot-sized bet behind after that. And I shoved and he folded. So let's look at the GTO Wizard solution facing a small bet here on the river. Well, Wizard likes it. Okay, so maybe I made up for my mistake on 4th Street by playing the river very well. It's a 58% fold and 42% shove. Obviously, we never want to call with ace high here, even though it could be good. It's way better to pick him off and put him to a decision when we know that he probably doesn't have the nuts with any regularity. So yeah, I'm happy about this. I'm glad that the wizard saw it the way I saw it, and that I actually found this play in real time. That's so important. It's one thing to study away from the table. It's another thing to be sitting there and have your wits about you and see the spots as they appear. This is good and very encouraging. And guys, I'm telling you, this program is so easy to use. You're going to love it. Give it a try. You get a 24-hour free trial, by the way. Just use that link, gtowizard.com/p/TPE. All right, I want to do one more hand. This one is going to be from last year's World Series of Poker Main Event. Okay, the 2025 Main Event Day 2, A, B, and C. The blinds are 500 and 1,000 with a 1,000 big blind ante. So obviously I am gearing up for the summertime. I'm looking at schedules. I'm booking hotels. I'm making travel plans. I cannot wait to spend my summer doing what I love, playing poker in fabulous Las Vegas. And this time of year, it is nice to go back and look at the previous year's main event, because if you ever think that poker is dying or that solvers have ruined poker and that everyone's a GTO robot and nobody ever makes any big mistakes anymore. Guys, just watch the main event for 10 minutes and you will relieve yourself of that burden. So in this hand, we are going to assume the role of Harry Elliott. Okay, so you are an amateur player, I think from the South somewhere, an older gentleman. You've got 48.5K in your stack. You are under the gun with pocket queens and the blinds are 500, 1K with a 1K big blind ante. Obviously, we're going to come in for a raise, first to act with pocket queens. But no, already Harry Elliott does something unusual and limps in and puts in 1,000. What's the worst that could happen? Well, next to act on your immediate left, Mr. Elliott, is the great Daniel Negreanu. And he's in second position. I'm not going to tell you guys just yet what Daniel has, but he's going to raise it here. He's going to raise our limp. He's going to make it 3,000. So just 3x there, maybe trying to isolate the limper, or maybe he's got a huge hand himself. But he makes it 3K and his stack is huge. He's got 146,000. And this is relatively early on day 2 of the main event. So Daniel's off to a hot start in this one. Action folds now all the way around to the small blind. David Rubinski with 140,000 in his stack, and he makes the call. I won't tell you what he has yet either. And now in the big blind, Annie Q, she's got the ace-10 offsuit, and she's seeing all this action, a limp, and then a raise, and then a call from the small blind, and she just says, I'm going to just get out of this. She folds ace-10. Ace-10 in the muck. I think it's a pretty disciplined lay down here from Ms. Q. She doesn't want to get involved in a multi-way pot with a mediocre hand in poor position. So good for you. A lot of people, they want to play, especially on TV, and they'll get involved here. I think folding here is absolutely fine. So good on you for doing that. Now the action is back on Harry Elliott. Remember, we've got pocket queens. We limped in, Negreanu raised, this other guy called in the small blind, and now it's back on us. And Elliott says, re-raise. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, maybe the guy's got some game to him. You know, I mean, this is pretty strong because you limped from under the gun, and then Negreanu, very next to act, Negreanu raised, and then this other player called from the small blind. So to re-raise here, I'm not even sure that Negreanu should continue with pocket kings if we put in a big re-raise here. Unfortunately, though, Harry Elliott decides to 3-bet to 6,000. So obviously that's not a GTO play to limp in and then kind of min re-raise. I don't know. With queens, I don't know. Obviously, no one's folding for that price. Negreanu calls and Rubinski calls as well. So 3 players are going to see the flop. And now with 20,000 in the middle, and we, Harry Elliott, we just have 42.5K behind. So just about SPR right around 2 there. And the flop comes 10 of diamonds, 8 of clubs, 6 of spades. So 10, 8, 6, rainbow. Hero with the queen of hearts, queen of clubs. Now Rubinski checks from the small blind, and the action is on Harry Elliott. He decides to take a stab at this pot with his overpair into the pot of 20,000. Okay, Elliott bets 2,500. So, you know, just your standard 1/8 pot size bet. I'm not trying to make fun of the guy, but the sizing is all over the place from this amateur, and it's got to be perplexing to Daniel Negreanu, who sees this tiny bet into this substantial pot and decides to keep putting the pressure on. Negreanu raises with a hand I haven't revealed yet to 6,500, and then Rubinski cold calls from the small blind, and I haven't told you guys what he has either. But what I can tell you is that both of these guys have Elliott covered. Now, you guys can call me crazy if you want, but if I am Harry Elliott in this situation, I'm going to raise again. Like, for some reason, we bet 2,500 into 20K. We've got an SPR of 2, pocket queens, which no one could possibly figure out what we have because of the strange sizing we've been using from the very beginning. There are a number of draws available, and probably I would just commit to this pot. If I had played it this way, which I don't think I would have, but if you throw me, like time warp me into his shoes at this exact moment, I think, look, this pot is getting big. Okay, Negreanu and Rubinski have each put in 6,500. I myself had put in another 2,500. There was already 20K in there. There's basically almost 40,000 in the middle, and I've got just about that in my stack. So let's just go. You know what? If this is how I lose, so be it. I played my hand in a strange way. I got all kinds of action. I've got an overpair. I've got an aggressive professional on my left. Maybe I've played him like a fiddle, just betting this tiny little amount, limping in and doing all this weird stuff. So maybe he's got just a 10 or something, pocket jacks maybe. So let's go. There are hands I can beat, and I can put someone else to a decision. It is time for Harry Elliott to take control of his main event. There's enough in there for him to try to win it with the overpair. I'm all in. However, Elliott just calls. And now with 39,500 in the middle, Elliott has just 36,000 more in his stack. And the turn is the ace of diamonds. So our board is now 10 of diamonds, 8 of clubs, 6 of spades, ace of diamonds. If you're Harry Elliott, you have to hate seeing that stupid ace of diamonds come off. It's terrible news. If my queens were good a minute ago, there's a good chance they're no good anymore. And even if they do happen to be good still, I'm unlikely to make any more chips from it because it's hard to get action when that overcard comes out. Everyone knows that ace is a scare card. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Rubinski checks once more, and this time, instead of giving up on this hand, Elliott bets 1,000 into a pot of 39,500. Is this statistically and percentage-wise the smallest bet I've ever seen in my life? Have I ever seen a man bet 1/40th of the pot? I mean, this is about a 2% of the pot bet. I don't think I've ever seen a bet smaller than this one. But he bets 1,000 into 39.5, and Negreanu pounces, raising it now to 18,000. And I'm ready at this moment to reveal that Daniel Negreanu has the Jack of Clubs, 7 of Clubs. So he's got nothing more than a gut shot. And Harry Elliott, to his credit, has managed to get one of the best players of all time to put in a whole lot of chips, drawing very, very slim against his pocket queens. The problem for both of these players, as they're about to find out, is that David Rubinski has flopped the nuts with the 9-7 of diamonds. So remember, our flop was 10 of diamonds, 8 of clubs, 6 of spades, and then he actually picks up a flush draw on the ace of diamonds on the turn. And so Rubinski with the 9-7 has just been kind of hanging out so far. But now that it's going bet and then a big raise from Negreanu, Rubinski gets greedy. He makes it 60,000 to go. And obviously, Harry Elliott is done with the hand. He throws his cards away. Now, I would have gone bust with the queens in Elliott's shoes, I guess. And clearly, Negreanu is not going to continue with Jack 7 high, just a gut shot. Although it's worth mentioning, if Negreanu catches a 9 somehow on the river, he will actually have a higher straight than the one Rubinski flopped. And what a story that would be for David Rubinski going forward, to tell people how he got absolutely murdered on the televised featured table of the main event. Oh my goodness, that's something he would probably never forget for the rest of his life. Fortunately for him, it didn't go down that way. He actually takes it down and wins a nice pot just by kind of being patient. Although maybe, just maybe, he could have won some more with a little more patience. still. And that'll do it for this episode. Guys, if you haven't subscribed yet to our YouTube channel, I really don't care if you don't want to watch the videos. Do me a favor anyway and hit that subscribe button. YouTube.com/@ClaytonComic. That's something you can do for free that helps us out so much. And for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas plays. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart.